Welcome to my channel, detailing events throughout the decades. 1985. Air India Flight 182. Viewer discretion advised. Air India Flight 182 was an Air India flight operating on the Toronto, Montreal, London to Delhi route. On June 23, 1985, the Air India Boeing 747 disintegrated in midair at 31,000 feet. This was as a result of an explosion from a bomb which had been planted by Canadian Sikh terrorists. Flight 182 was en route at the time from Toronto to London, before continuing to Bombay. After a routine stop in Montreal, where Canadian officials removed 3 suspicious packages from the aircraft, the flight then departed for London. It established communication with Heathrow Airport's control tower. Around 45 minutes from its final destination, the aircraft exploded and disintegrated in midair, with no warning or emergency calls issued. The aircraft disappeared from radar screens. Heathrow Airport staff quickly dispatched emergency rescue crews to look for the aircraft and find survivors. No survivors of Flight 182 were found. The aircraft crashed into the Atlantic Ocean over the southwest tip of Ireland, killing all 329 people on board. Amongst these were 268 Canadian citizens, 27 British and 24 Indian citizens. The bombing of Air India Flight 182 is the largest mass killing in Canadian history, and was at the time the world's most destructive act of aviation terrorism until 9/11. The bombing of Flight 182 occurred at the same time as the Narita Airport bombing. Investigators believe that the two were linked, and those responsible were aiming for a double bombing. The bomb at Narita Airport exploded before it could be loaded onto a plane. Canadian law enforcement determined that the main suspects were members of the Sikh militant group Babar Khalsa. The attack is thought to have been in retaliation to the Indian government's Operation Blue Star, in which the Indian Army entered the Golden Temple in Amritsar to remove occupying Sikh militants. After the bombing, a handful of Sikh militant members were arrested and tried for the Air India bombing. The only person who was convicted was Inderjit Singh Riat. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter in 2003 and was sentenced to 15 years in jail. The investigation and prosecution into the bombings had lasted almost 20 years, and was the most expensive trial in Canadian history, costing almost $130 million. In 1986, a monument was unveiled in Hackestaw, Ireland on the first anniversary of the bombing. Elsewhere, memorials were erected to commemorate the victims of Flight 182. 20 years after the crash, families gathered in Hackestaw, Ireland to grieve. Governor-General Adrian Clarkson declared the anniversary as a national day of mourning, always remembering those who died in the crash that day. May you never be forgotten. Thank you for watching and learning about these events throughout history. Please subscribe to my channel to see other tragic events which will be forever remembered throughout history.